disrespectful to your culture, in your eyes, that people should know about? Maybe by sharing, people will stop.
Okay, so we're going to ask you guys. I mean, you tackle that.
Being treated as a member of a group instead of as an individual. I think that's disrespectful. When people think that you attribute to you characteristics that they generalize about a particular group instead of treating you as an individual human being, that's what's disrespectful.
So looking at you, saying you're a white guy, so obviously you believe this.
Right. Or looking at anybody that way.
Maha?
I think that the issue of women, the way this whole subject is looked at, is very disrespectful to my culture. Whether when you look at somebody who's covered, you think that she's oppressed, or, you know, the story we hear right now in the news about Saudi Arabian women who are learning how to drive or want to drive, and I don't want to take away from the importance of their right in Saudi Arabia, these women to get their driver's license and all of that, but you cannot generalize how women are treated in the Arab culture based on just looking at this particular struggle that Saudi women are dealing with. First of all, the Arab world is much bigger than Saudi Arabia. Second of all, when it comes to gender equality, I want anybody to be able to claim that there is gender equality even in this country. I mean, there is no gender equality everywhere in the world. You know.
Let me just say, what's disrespectful to America is how we spend so much time comparing our victimhood and who's worse and who got treated worse, when we all have just hurt each other so much. This is the thing that bothers me. When you ask a question, for instance, the poll question, you know, who was most discriminated against? The American Indian. So, okay, the people online think black folks. Good for them, because yes, you cannot just pretend that 300 years of slavery didn't happen and say get over it. But what I'd like for us to do is be able to talk about those things, because that's what bothers somebody, without comparing or without dismissing it. Our problem is that we dismiss pain. It's like, okay, we don't want to deal with that anymore. Don't tell me you don't want to deal with what breaks my heart. That means you don't care about me.
Tech Young, real quickly, what's disrespectful in your community? Because I know we were talking earlier and you were saying that in the Korean community, you smile to say sorry, but business owners in the city of Detroit sometimes smile at Detroiters to say sorry, and they feel disrespected.
Well, I don't know if that's happening to the adults as well as it happened to the young kids, because smiling means to us, I mean, saying sorry. I mean, when you're condemned or being criticized, sometimes we smile to say, to express our feeling, to say sorry. But that is not acceptable in American culture. It is like denying what the criticism was about. So, but it was the new learning process for every Korean little kids when I was working as a ESL tutor in our public schools. They didn't know how to act, because it was not acceptable in America.
Honestly, what's disrespectful do you think, key, and again, we're speaking of a generalization in a Hispanic community?
I kind of alluded to it earlier, the fact that people don't think we're American, yet we've been around. Our history and our culture has been around for almost 500 years. What's the impediment that leads people to believe that? Part of this belief that we are the other. You know, it's a softer version of the demonization, you know, so that you're always having to explain yourself. Doesn't mean that immigrants are not a relatively big group of this Latino population, but I know people that are 5th, 6th, even 10th generation Latino. When I lived in LA, I worked with gang members, and almost all of them had lived there, or their family were there in Los Angeles when it was part of Mexico, and that was really an educational piece for me. And I just want to add something, and we've been talking about the problems associated with racism and not accepting each other, but I want to go back to what Jordan was talking about. We need to talk about multiculturalism. We need to talk about being world citizen. So the conversation we had is important, but that's the foundation from which we do talk about multiculturalism.
So for bridging the gap, and Jordan, you are the young one at the table here, 29-year-old. You're in the Jewish community, so are you discriminated against, or what stereotype don't you like, or what's disrespectful in your community?
As I think I alluded to it before regarding attaching Jews to financial resources, but also, too, more specifically, we're just focused on taking care of our own. A lot of people feel the Jewish community is insular, and that was a big piece with the Jewish Federation starting Community Next. And our tagline is all together now, because we as a community look at this as a regional problem. And out of that, we spun out an initiative called Detroit Harmony, which is actually tackling this issue, where we have board members from a variety of cultures focus on how do we create this natural type of diversity.
We're going to look for the future here in just a moment. That's because that's where we want to lead this, is the suggestions that people can help out. Right now we want to go to Joanne in the control room.
All right, thanks guys. More than 1,100 people now joining our conversation on Detroit2020.com, weighing in a spirit of conversation and also weighing in on poll questions we've been asking. And when I was last with you, I asked you the question, do you socialize outside of work with people of different races? And when you take a look at the results so far that we're seeing on our webpage, 79% of people have weighed in and said yes, they do socialize outside of work with people of other races. 21% have said they do not. We've also been monitoring people's comments, as we've told you all night long. And a comment came in from Emma tonight that you see on your screen there too. She says, I feel race is less of an issue than is social status as far as stereotyping is concerned. Racism is a huge problem, but I feel many of the negative racial stereotypes are attached to social status. For example, if you take a black businessman or woman compared to a black man or woman living in a housing project, the racial discrimination hits the hardest on those of lower social classes. Also a comment below, we are all one people. We separate by the good and the bad. And certainly I think that's the goal, right? That's the goal of this conversation tonight. That's the goal of all of it, for all of us to look at each other as one person. It's not necessarily the reality right now, but we're doing our best getting this conversation going tonight to help make that a reality. So again, join our conversation. It's going on tonight, even past 8 o'clock when the show ends. Take part, Detroit2020.com. Back to you in the studio.
That was wonderfully put, Joanne. Thank you much. So, what is the key to healing Metro Detroit's racial wounds? How can people act to bring about change?
We're going to move in that direction. I wanted to ask you a question, because we're talking about when people say, you were surprised at that figure that people say they do associate people outside of their race. And I'm, first of all, qualify this, doesn't count who your waiter was or something like that at the restaurant. These are your friends, people you spent your time with. You were surprised at that number?
Well, and part of it, in my previous job, I was Director of Multicultural Affairs at Madonna University and did some statewide work at the higher ed level. And I saw repeated survey after survey that stated quite the contrary. So that's pretty rapid development, positive development, and I'm just wondering how skewed it is.
Okay, good deal. We're going to go around the table right now. How can we bring about change right now? Rochelle, let's start with you.
Look, listen, and learn. I'll tell you two things. I took a Spanish class, and the teacher said, do you want to learn Mexican Spanish, Spanish, or Latin American Spanish? Blew me away. This was a few years ago, and I went, oh, wake up, learn. The second thing is, all households in America, middle class, 43%. Black middle class, 38%. It is not what you think. The other thing is I plan to listen more, because I know there's nothing worse for me than when someone dismisses something that I feel or something that I know hurts people. Don't dismiss it because you disagree with it. Listen to it. Understand it. That's how we make progress.
Tatiana, help us move forward. What do we do?
Well, Detroit Lions are winning. Well, because everybody in the team...
anything can happen.
Everybody in the team is contributing. That's what we, the ethnic groups, want to do. I mean, to change the game in Detroit, every ethnic group wants to be part of it. And not just as a spectator or bench player, but as a key role player. How to make it possible? The communication. We segregated because we fear each other. To get over that, I mean, the 5 ethnic groups in Michigan area, the Asian community, Hispanic, Arab American, and Jewish and African American. Jewish, by the way, Jewish and
all
Arab American, they
okay.
get along very well. So,
Jordan,
I mean, we need to share the story, positive stories about each community.
Absolutely. Jordan?
It comes down to building an army one person at a time. That's our role as the next generation. We view this world as flat. I'm honored to be on a panel with all of you. And our job, what we're going to do is we're going to build this army, and then we need access to the resources and the top political and governmental leaders.
Good deal. Maha, in 15 seconds.
I believe in the power of people. I think that community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, if they are proactively taking this as a priority, things will happen. And we have to start with our individual responsibility as well.
Good deal. Ozzy?
I think having open but safe areas for discussing, whether it is in your church, in your university, in the workplace, and they have to be organized. It doesn't happen by chance and long term, because it's not going to happen overnight.
All right, Leon?
Don't wait for politicians, don't wait for community leaders, don't wait for group activists. Live it in your own life. Live it in your own life, and expect it from others that you interact with. So you change it one person at a time that way.
I certainly agree. Get out there and talk to people who you don't know. Get into different communities, different cultures. Get to know other people.
I think it would be fun, as you know, we've managed to bring a group here together tonight. I'd love to see everybody do the same thing in your neighborhoods. Go search out that group of people that you may not necessarily spend time with.
You'll be surprised, won't you?
Spend some time, ask them the questions and find out. And a few minutes ago, I started off by asking you a question. I said, is it proper for me to call you Tak or Tak Young? And I think these are the kinds of questions we need to ask. What in your culture is appropriate?
Absolutely.
Obviously, we're not going to solve this problem overnight. We wish we could. But we hope we've started a conversation. We are hoping this will open the lines of communication.
Like we said, talk with your family, talk with your friends, talk with your coworkers, invite someone over to your house for dinner. But don't just open the door, open your mind, open your heart. Remember, we all have something unique and special to offer our collective community.
Right now, we want to officially thank our panelists for joining us tonight. Also, we really want to thank you at home tonight for watching. Also, we want to thank the more than 1,200 people who have been taking part online at Detroit2020.com. We want to thank the people who have been weighing in on Twitter and on Facebook also. It's if everybody takes that interest that you've shown tonight and take it the next step farther, we're going to show that we can make a change here.
It takes one person at a time. And if something is on your mind, we certainly want to hear about it. We want to keep the conversation going on Detroit 2020's Facebook page. And don't forget to like us while you're there.
Was this a commercial?
No.
We also have a list of places you can go, created by each of our guests on Detroit2020.com. So check them out. Try something different. Thanks for joining us.
Have a great night, and come on back and see us later on tonight for Action News at 11.